Oh, fuck's sake. Hi guys, to anyone watching, we're starting the stream in 7 minutes. I'm just setting everything up so that everything's working before we get going. Guys, to anyone watching, we're starting the stream in 7 minutes. I'm just setting everything up so that everything's working before we test in. 1, 2, 3. In 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, it's working. Looks like we haven't got Roger at the moment. He doesn't seem to be here. So, last time he's probably overslept or forgotten. Because it's 5 AM his time, so in all fairness, it's a lot to do. I'll be back in 2. Sort my dog out. Okay, it's fine. Just waiting for Michael to join us. He should be here any minute now. Fine, everything seems fine. Okay, just waiting for Michael. Should be here any second. Just messaging Mike just to check he's not forgotten, even though I spoke to him a half hour ago. He shouldn't have, but oh, there he is. There's a fellow gister. You okay?
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, John.
Right.
I've got I've got a blank screen in front of me for some reason. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, if you may notice now, I've got, I can only have 2 views, can I? Okay. You notice now we got the chat on our screen as well. Something
Yeah.
Roger worked out yesterday, so it saves me when I'm recording having to go off the screen and back on it. I can see it in front of us, so anyone comments,
Fantastic.
we can both see it then, yeah?
Yeah,
So,
lovely.
Roger seems to be in no show, so he's either fallen asleep or he's forgotten. I did ask
Okay.
him yesterday, and he said he wanted to be here. Um, we'd have to
That's
just,
okay. Everything's all right with him.
yeah, he probably is. It's 5 o'clock in the morning for him, so
Right.
in all
Wow.
fairness, he's sometimes he gets, he just falls asleep, or he just forgets or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's no problem. I've sent him the link. If he does happen to remember or wake up or whatever, that he's got the link to join us anyway.
Okay.
Due to start in 2 minutes. I think everything is fine. Everything seems to be fine. No issues anywhere. I can tell.
Just getting rid of some of these so I don't start getting a bong bong when I'm getting messages on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
There we go. Lovely.
Hang on. Where am I? Hang on a minute. Let's get back to you.
On Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's it.
Lovely.
I've got it on. Okay. What am I doing now? Right. Okay. Yeah, everything's fine. Just checking. It was confusing when you're looking at the different tabs, because it's like behind, and you're thinking, "Oh, what's going on?" You know what I mean? Right then, might as well start then. We've got some people watching, so we might as well get
Okay.
going if you're okay.
Hey.
He froze up. Oh, now you're there. Right then, so hi guys. Today we've got another episode of Water into Wine, which is based on a Michael Poore's podcast of the same name. I've put the link in the description of this live stream for this episode, and through there you can see his other episodes of his podcast if you wish to find out a bit more information about it. So this episode delves into Leonardo's artwork and also the planets and symbolism on the planets and stuff like that. It's quite interesting. So I think I'll hand it to Michael, because I'm sure he's going to have a lot of information to share about this, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, John. Well, first of all, it's nice to be here again. Thank you very much for inviting me back. When I was going around Europe on these little weekend breaks, the city breaks, as I said, I went to Florence into the Uffizi and saw the Birth of Venus by Botticelli, and I went to Paris and Rome as well to look into separate. I went all around the Vatican in Rome. It's an amazing place, very, very, very wealthy place, I must admit. So I started noticing within, especially in the Louvre, within certain works of art, there was a pagan theme that kept coming out at me, and paganism has got a bad rap over the years because certain organizations have been trying to push us away from paganism. We're all pagan. We're all animals. We all live on Earth, and that's it. That's where it stopped. And paganism is just the love of Mother Earth and everything that she gives us. And when you go right the way back in time, the further back you go, the more defined it is. The Egyptians, every single one of their gods was in charge of a different piece of reality. So you had God of the sun, God of the moon, God of the night, God of the day, God of the clouds, God of the grass, God of this, God of that, God of the water. But every single one of them was part of nature. It basically, they didn't call it this. This is a modern invention, but it was paganism from a very, very grassroots level. And we've just put the name pagan over the top of it. I mean, pagan means comes from the Latin paganus, and it means country dweller. So because they understood nature more than anybody else. So when you go back to Leonardo's Da Vinci time, 1500, 1450s, 1400s, people were burned at the stake for following paganism. So it was really mystifying to me to see these, and Botticelli was the same, to see these artists, very, very good artists for their time, being pagan in their images, although they probably weren't outside their images. People were burnt at the stake for less than that. So I noticed there was a particular painting that Leonardo da Vinci painted twice. One of them is called Madonna of the Rocks. And the other one is called, oh, look at that. I had it a minute ago. The name slipped me. Virgin of the Rocks. That was it. Madonna of the Rocks and Virgin of the Rocks. Now, one of these is in a museum in London, and the other one is in the Louvre in Paris. And they are virtually exactly the same. But he painted the first one, and the angel of the Lord, who's in the picture with her arm round John the Baptist, this is Leonardo da Vinci's explanation of him, was pointing her hand at Jesus, who's next to his mother, Mary, and she had her arm round Jesus. So, and they refused to pay for the painting, and it went on for a few years, and on and on and on and on. They said it had anti-Christian symbolism encoded in it. And this is I think this was mentioned in the Da Vinci Code as well. Well, when you get deeper into it, he painted another version, which is why there's two versions. And the difference was the angel of the Lord, was it Uriel? I can't remember. I did know the name of the angel. She doesn't have her hand pointing at one of the children. It's now pointing down. And the organization that hired him, the church that hired him, changed the meaning. They said, instead of Jesus with Mary's arm around him and John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, they swapped the children. They said Mary had her arm around John the Baptist and the angel of the Lord had her arm around Jesus. Well, that mystified the living daylights out of me. Why would you? It seems like such a finicky thing to do. So I started delving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and I found out the reason that, and I think this came out in the Da Vinci Code as well. The reason the two children were swapped is because you can see the genitals of the child next to Mary, and you can't see the genitals of the child next to the angel of the Lord. So basically, if Jesus is next to Mary, you can see his genitals, and that means he's a normal man. He's not divine. So that was reason. I stumbled across that was the reason. But whenever you look at a picture of Jesus, he's always got a wisp of cloth around his genital area. There's one of him on the cross, and there's still this cloth covering his genitals. So it made very much sense. I started looking more into Leonardo's work, and I come across the Vitruvian Man. Now, he followed the footsteps of I think it was 30 BC, Vitruvian, the architect. And the architect said, if the human body is divinely created, then any building that's created with the same proportions will also be a divine building. So now that interested me, because I found out that Leonardo took, I think it was about 3.5 years, maybe a little bit longer, out of all of his painting to dissect bodies for this one drawing. It was never a painting, and the drawing's still about. I think that's in Rome somewhere. I could be wrong with that. It might even be in the Louvre. I don't know. So the gist of it is the paint, when you look at it, get it up on your screens, and it's anatomically perfect. I mean, it's amazing that somebody can draw this perfect. And it's the man in the center with his arms and legs outstretched, and he's in a square and in a circle. So now I want to know what is so important about this drawing that he spent 2.5, 3 years getting it perfect. And what does the square on the circle represent? It was just a nagging feeling in the back of my head that there's more in that. So Leonardo explained the drawing as man bridges the gap between the terrestrial world, which is what the square represents, because it's got 4 corners: earth, air, fire, and water, and the celestial world, which is heaven or spirit world, because it's a circle and it never ends. There's no starting or ending. It's always been there, always will be there, and it just keeps going round and round and round. Now, this man was no fool. He was no fool at all. Very, very intelligent man. All of a sudden, why is he turning around and saying that we bridge the gap between the 2 worlds? Later on, when I got asked to become a Freemason, I found out that the Freemasons are heavily into squares and circles, as well as the colours black and white. And then I started stumbling across a phrase, "as above, so below," which is supposed to be on the emerald, carved on the emerald tablets of Thoth. And this is really mystifying now. We're stumbling at this point. We're stumbling across the early beginnings, or for me anyway, the early findings of sacred geometry. And I didn't realize it at the time how big that was in our lives, but it's huge. So Leonardo's saying that we bridged the gap between the earthbound body and the celestial world, where we bridged the gap between the 2 worlds. And the more I was to find out along this 17-year journey, the more that rings true. And it wasn't till after about 10 years or so I looked back and I went, oh my word, he was telling us. He's actually telling us the answer. So this sacred geometry I started getting involved with at that point. I found out that Venus I've got this written down here because I wanted to get it right. Venus over the years, 8 years, it is in perfect alignment with the Earth and the Sun 5 times. And when you draw a line between these 5 times, it becomes a pentacle, or pentagram, I think it's called, without the circle around it. Now, whenever you see a pentagram, it's normally got a circle around it. Now, that circle represents the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. So that goes back, it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I have no idea how the ancient civilizations, other than dimethyltryptamine use, I had no idea how they found out or how they knew this very basic building block of nature. This is how reality is built with these signs. Mercury is the same. Mercury revolves around the sun and is in alignment 3 times in 50 weeks. So it's in alignment, and this gets a little bit more complicated. It's in alignment 3 times positive, which means it's directly next to the Earth, in the middle of that and the sun, and 3 times negative, which means it's round the opposite side of the sun, but it's still in alignment. All the 3 are in alignment. And when you draw a line between these alignments, it becomes the Star of David or the Seal of Solomon, because it's got 6 points. Again, that goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Even King Solomon was playing, who there's no archaeological evidence he ever existed, by the way, because we're looking for the wrong name. That's the reason, I think, why. He supposed to have carved this on the walls of Jerusalem as a good luck symbol. And again, when you put that in a circle to mount it, it becomes a hexagram, I think it was called, something like that. But that's the orbit of the Earth around the sun. Over this amount of time, this amount of years, I started coming across Latin phrases. These shapes, for example, they go through everything in what we call reality. For example, if you cut an apple width-wise, and then look at the core, it's a pentacle. That's the shape of it, and nobody's put it there. That's nature producing that shape. There's a certain place in, I think it's Ireland, called the Devil's Causeway or something like that, and they've got rocks coming up out of the floor that are a hexagonal shape. Nobody's put them there. Nobody's carved it. This is nature producing this, presumably with a sound frequency, as I later found out. If you cut open a beehive and look at the shape inside the beehive, the shape where the bees actually get into, it's a hexagonal shape. It's the Seal of Solomon. So if you cut open a wasp's nest, these beehives and wasps' nests are an absolute work of art. I had one in a flat that I used to own, and I cut it in half in the winter because I needed to get rid of it. I couldn't believe the first time, I'm going back 20 years now, the first time that I'd ever seen inside one of these. It was absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't believe the precision with which this was built, and it was a wasp. You know, we just write wasps off because they're annoying, basically. But it, again, where the wasp goes, it's a hexagonal shape. It's a six-pointed star shape. What else was I going to tell you about here? Snowflakes as well. There's a phrase going around that says that every snowflake is a perfect individual shape. It's not a uniform shape, and where that's true, but when you look at the individual geometric pattern that makes the snowflake, where each snowflake is a number of these patterns put together, and that's not uniform. That's all higgledy-piggledy. But when you look at the basic geometric pattern, again, it's the Star of David, or the Seal of Solomon, or a hexagonal shape, whatever you want to call it. And doing all this over the years, I started bumping into Latin phrases. So I decided to look a little bit into certain phrases that we've been told by churches and so on and so forth that were evil or nasty, and we should stay away from them. And I found out that the word Satan was a demonization of the planet Saturn. Now that's made me even more curious about Saturn. So I started looking at Saturn. I looked at the North Pole of Saturn with pictures from, I think the pictures were from NASA. And you can see a cloud formation on the North Pole of Saturn that's a hexagonal shape. Again, Seal of Solomon. It's the Star of David. When you draw a line between all the points, it becomes a Star of David. Now, that mystified me very, very much. Because if all these patterns are put together through sound doesn't travel through space because there's no atmosphere, there's no air. And where there's no atmosphere, there's no sound. So how is this and I still haven't come to the bottom of this, how is this on the North Pole of Saturn? And when you look at the South Pole of Saturn, it's quite clearly, it looks like an eye. And it's just rocks and dust. It's made up the same stuff. It's just moving around in a circular pattern, producing this as the center shape. So with all I finding out that Satan was a demonization of the word Saturn, I decided to look at the word Lucifer. Because we all know Lucifer's the devil. He's the horned beast. He lives in a place which is all fire and brimstone and nasty and screaming and horrible. But it wasn't originally like that. The horned people were represented as gods, because every god, you go back far enough, every god had horns. This was the reason that the Vikings put the horns on their hats, because when they were standing on the bow of their ship going into battle, they all put the hats on, and they wanted the people they were about to attack to panic because, you know, the gods are coming to get us. So that made a lot of sense to me. Obviously obviously that all these gods had super powers. They were undefeatable. And the word Lucifer comes from Latin. The word in Latin is laissez faire. So you can see how it's become Lucifer. But laissez faire means morning star. It's got no devil attached to it at all. When you go back to the use of Latin and laissez faire, they were referring to the planet Venus, because Venus, being one of the brightest stars in the sky, it was the last planet to be seen in the morning, the first planet to be seen at night. So it used to pierce through the semi-daylight, and because it bookended the day, start and stop, the ancients used to believe that this was a sacred feminine thing. So the planet Venus took on a mother figure, if you like. It took on an all-controlling pagan attribute. And incidentally, when I looked at Botticelli's Birth of Venus in the Uffizi, he represents, it's called the Birth of Venus, obviously. Venus was standing there as a Mother Nature type figure. She's got the wind blowing in her hair, and she's standing on a seashell. And it's a particular type of seashell. Now, I've seen this seashell all over Christian churches. The shell itself, and if you have a look at the Birth of Venus by Botticelli, you'll see this, and you'll know exactly it's a perfect seashell. It represents the mother half of nature and reproduction. So rejuvenating. That's the gist. That's the gist of that. It's lovely. It's a lovely painting. It's right by the door as well, which I couldn't believe when I went in there. I thought to myself, what's stopping people from nipping in, sticking it under their coat, and getting out again? But I wouldn't like to test it. So this sacred geometry excursion I took on this whole journey that I've been on was very revealing to me. Reality, what we call reality, is made up of, and this gets involved with the simulation theory that quantum physicists and scientists in general, most of them anyway, are all saying that reality is a simulation. It's a computer simulation. This is the reason, one of the reasons, as well as heavy mathematics, that they're saying this is because all of reality is made up of these very basic, and I mean very basic shapes, put together like the Seal of Solomon in a snowflake, and put together loads of times to make what we call reality: stones and grass and sky and trees and all the rest of it. But that particular part, it was really mystifying me. So who's putting this together? Why is it going together? And later on, when I started stumbling across cymatics on YouTube, where you can actually see the building blocks of life being put together, scientists have been using sand or salt to do this. And some of them have got a speaker, and they put like a metal grill over the top of the speaker. But it's not a grill, it's a flat piece of metal over the top of the speaker and suspend it just above the speaker. Then they pour sand, and you'll go onto YouTube. You'll see this thousands of times. It's fascinating to watch this. Sand all over the metal plate, and then they play particular frequencies through the speaker, and you can see the sand jump into a prearranged pattern for that sound. And it's the absolutely most fascinating thing I've ever sat and watched. There's people doing it in their houses. It's all over YouTube. And also scientists have started to, when I first started this quest, I couldn't stumble across any of this. There's rumors that the Great Pyramid of Giza was put together by levitating the stones, and this come from, sadly not with us anymore, Hakim, I think his name was, his second name, who was an elder. He was an Egyptian elder. there was a program on TV with Joanna Lumley where she was having a tour
Right.
around Egypt, and she was in a boat with Hakim.
No.
And Hakim is actually saying
Hello?
to her that yes, they levitated the stones
Hello?
into position. That's why they could do it so quickly. And then Joanna Lumley looked at the camera and she went, as if he's a lunatic. But there's legends and rumors of not just the Egyptians doing this, but monks as well around Southern America and Mayans. They were doing
Yes,
this,
it is,
and
yeah.
that really mystified me. And then all of a sudden, I started
Right,
coming
everything okay?
across sonic levitation videos, which you can still see on eBay on YouTube today. Just go and have a look. This is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen. That there's these scientists in a sealed box. They put two speakers, one either side. Let's get the center. That's it. One either side like that. And then in the center, they put a tiny little droplet of water. And you can see them. They're playing the speaker, playing two different tones through the speaker. I don't know what tones there are.
Yeah,
and I would love to replicate this, but
I don't know what.
I don't think I'll be able to do it, to be honest. I haven't got the apparatus.
Why he's suddenly been like
they're
this?
moving the droplets of water up and down, and then in the next video I saw, they were using small pieces of polystyrene. And these pieces of polystyrene, by changing the frequencies slightly that's hitting the polystyrene from the speakers, they were twisting and they were going upside down. They were able to turn and maneuver invisibly.
Right, okay.
Now, in amongst all
I'll
this,
speak to his mother later,
I started
see what she wants to
stumbling
do
across
next thing we can do.
Solomon.
If you refuse,
as I said before, there's no archaeological evidence that
make
he
him
ever
go.
existed.
You know, I don't know what I can
think
do.
that's his name. I can't find out what the name means. Like Moses, for
he's
example,
not brilliant at home either.
And his sacred leader, and so on and so forth. I can't find the name for Solomon. So
good and bad spells
can't
at home.
say to you definitely his name's been changed. But
yeah, it's very frustrating.
First of all, in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, there's a body that they found that has been killed using the same wounds as the Freemasons called Hiram Abiff.
See what she says.
And as we've been told that Solomon was killed.
Bye.
And that is a front of the head caved in, side of the head caved in, and the back of the head cracked open. And the body's called, the mummy's called, if I can get it right, Sekenre Teo II. Have a look at that body, that mummy. And nobody really knows a lot about this pharaoh. But he was a pharaoh. And they know that much, but they don't know any more about it. So, Solomon, he said, just jumping back slightly there, it said that he was given a ring by God, and on the ring was the seal of Solomon, which is why it's called the seal of Solomon. And there's certain shapes. You can research this, and you can see different esoteric signs on the seal of Solomon. And the explanation goes, he was given this brass ring by God, and with this ring, he used to control the forces of the invisible demons. And I've just forgotten one of the demons' names. It's in Rennes-le-Château, the church in Rennes-le-Château. They put a demon in there. I can't remember the name there. No, I can't remember the name now. It's quite a famous demon. But he used to control the demon and the invisible forces to build the pyramids. To build Solomon's temple. Because there's huge stones, and nobody knows how these stones have been lifted. And it's the same as the Great Pyramid. Nobody knows how these stones were lifted. They go from 2.5 ton to 80 to 100 tons. And it's nearly 500 feet tall. We haven't got a crane. There has never been a crane in history built that can carry 80 tons up to 500 feet. It doesn't exist. Ever. It's never existed. And the tallest one I could find was, I think it was called a Kroll or something like that. The crane was called, and it was something like 316 feet tall. But the legend that he took this ring to control the invisible forces to build the temple, it fitted with me that he was using sound to levitate these stones. At that part, I stumbled across another guy. This has just hit me in the brain, called for the life of me, I can't remember his name now. I do discuss this in a later episode of the podcast. But he built. It's called Coral Castle, and I think it's in Florida or something like that. He built a complete castle out of coral. And he said, when somebody asked him, how did you build this? Because some of these stones were huge. Some of these lumps of coral weighed tons. And he's also got a door that he put in with no hinges. It balances perfectly on one side of it. And you can open and close it. And it weighs tons. You can open and close it with your finger, just pushing it gently. It opens and closes. And he said, I found out how they made the pyramid, and I built Coral Castle to he's Leaderskin, I think his name is, something like that, Leaderskin. And yeah, he said, I found out how they built the pyramids, and I used the same, he didn't say what it was, mind you. I didn't, and he took that to his grave now because he's not with us anymore. You can still go around and see Coral Castle. They've opened it up, and you just pay your whatever, and you just walk around and have a look at it. It's an amazing place. Yeah, I found out how they built the pyramids, so I built Coral Castle using the same principles. So I think this levitating with the use of sound thing isn't as far-fetched as Joanna Lumley originally thought it was when Hakim said it. I think this holds some weight. And I think only time's going to tell, John, that scientists will come out with a way to levitate heavier objects. As I say, it's only plastic cups and bits and pieces and water and tiny little droplets and beads. I think they've done beads as well. There's a guy in America that's and he really is like a nutty professor. He levitates using magnetism, levitates iron balls, great big iron bearings, as big as bowling balls. And he can levitate these and move them around the room. And he's using sound and magnetism to do that. And he's quite a fascinating fella as well. But I didn't actually put him in the book. And I think he's only just the way I've just mentioned that in the podcast. He was just mentioned then. So that was the episode 2, really, to be honest with you. It was my discovery of sacred geometry more than anything else, and how it builds up what we call reality.
Oh, that's fascinating. And as you know, I listen to each episode before we do each show to try and take notes, and all the questions I had you've answered already, so that was like, oh, that's good. I was going to ask, the technology that was around in Leonardo da Vinci's time, did they have telescopes, stuff like that? They didn't have them then, did they? Or
Galileo was the inventor of the telescope, wasn't he? He was imprisoned by saying that the Earth revolved around the sun. He was on house arrest for donkey's years over that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that was more 1400s. Yeah, that was more 1400s, something like that. I mean, you know, I don't know the date for definite, but there's something in the back of my head saying it was around that time. So Leonardo could well have understood the telescope.
Yeah, because I just can't get over the fact that they know the planets and stuff, and without any sort of technology to know it, you know what I mean? As you said, if they used drugs to, you know, hallucinogenics or something to see it that way, I don't know how they could do it, you know? It's amazing how they learned about the planets.
Well, I've interviewed quite a few people that have taken dimethyltryptamine. The first thing they always say is that this is the most mind-expanding or consciousness-expanding thing that they've ever done in their life.
Yeah,
it's a very dangerous drug, because if you've got anything that's not quite right with you, it makes you stare it full in the face. So I've got an acquaintance that took LSD, which has got dimethyltryptamine in it. It's the active ingredient. And he's had depression ever since. Now, that was donkeys years ago, and you can't get away from depression. So it's not something that you should be messing about with.
No, I agree.
But yeah, they all say, everyone that I've spoken to about DMT directly, they all say that it explains the way reality is.
Yeah.
And I'm yet to find somebody that comes back from a trip that doesn't think what we call reality is false. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. You need to speak to a friend of mine. He's known as Mr. Robot. He's anonymous in his, because he's done a lot of experiments with that, because he's a scientist by trade anyway. And the stories he has from it,
yeah.
He's amazing. We've got to get you two together. We have to.
Yeah, definitely. But they meet during this trip. They meet alien greys.
Yeah.
And when I discovered DMT, I started looking at certain biblical passages, and they made so much sense. I'm going to tell you a passage now. It's the story of Moses, who was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, and he needed inspiration. So he went off up into the mountain, and I'm obviously paraphrasing. I didn't put it like this in biblical text, where he went off into the mountain. So, and he's found a burning bush, and then he heard the voice of God. So he then got the inspiration from that and come down from the mountain and explain to the Israelites what was going on, where they're going to go, what they're going to do. Then you find out when you dig deep enough that these bushes and trees that are around that time, they're all related to the acacia bush or the acacia tree. The acacia wood, called shittim wood, is also what the Ark of the Covenant, 2.5 inches thick of that, what the Ark of the Covenant was made of. So when you set fire to this particular branch of the bush, the bark burns, but the inner wood doesn't burn because it's full of sap, so it won't burn. But it stays intact, but the bush itself burns, which is exactly what they say happened when Moses found the burning bush. The bush was intact, but it was still alight. So you look at the chemical makeup of the bark that's on this bush or tree, and you find there's zero. I can't remember whether it is 6% or 0.6% dimethyltryptamine. So I think Moses, the word means sacred leader, and the pharaohs were sacred leaders of their time because of the ritual of the twice born that they went through, which we discussed last week. Yeah. I think Moses was going up into the mountain to look for a particular bush that he knew contained something that would make him see and be able to talk to the other realm. So he found the bush, he set fire to it, and then he just went bosh straight out after breathing in the smoke. Because everybody that I've spoken to, smoking it is the quickest way to get it into the bloodstream, this dimethyltryptamine. So it makes a lot of sense that he used fire to do it. Bosh, he's out. He's met or was in the presence of the sacred feminine, which fits with everyday modern people. When they turn around and say they took it, they always have this all protecting, all loving, all controlling, which are feminine products. You look at any household, the woman runs the household. That's the bottom line of it all. And even Dr. Phil on TV says, fellas, don't mess with the nest. She's in control, and that's that. So, and I think they all come back and say, no, it was a feminine entity, but they never saw it. They could only understand it, and they could only feel its presence. And I think Moses done the same thing. It's just my thought. I've got no cast iron evidence on this, but what he says he done and what DMT gives you are exactly the same thing. So he would come down with a lot more inspiration than he went up with.
But it does make sense, yeah. That does make sense, actually. You said on podcast about Venus being Earth's twin and stuff. I think you said about it. It's got the surface of Venus is more like what the Bible depicts hell to be like as well, or something like that.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah.
You go back far. You go back far enough, though. There's a fantastic little video that I watched on YouTube, and it's called Earth's Evil Twin. And I just stumbled across it. It was on TV when I stumbled across it. It's about the course of Venus over the years, how it's changed. Venus used to be lush and green, and it was beautiful. And then they had an ecological disaster, acid rain and volcanoes and so on and so forth. And then it just went on from there, and it's just volcanoes were going off left, right, and centre. And now it's a molten mess, to be honest with you. So it's exactly what we've been led to believe that hell's like. And I think that was done on purpose to keep us away from looking at Venus.
Yeah, so you think there should have been life on it then? Must have been life on there at some point.
I would have thought so. If it was the same as Earth, I would have put money on it.
So maybe we're descendants from Venus. Maybe, who knows? I don't know.
There's an interesting book, Women for Venus and Men are from Mars.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And that keeps echoing in the back of my head. It's how we're two different races that have been combined on this planet, basically.
That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Anyway, the prodigal son's he's appeared.
Haha.
Hey Roger, you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I ended up just waking up.
Yeah, I know it's hard for you at 5 a.m. No fairness to you. You know what I mean? It is really hard for you.
Yeah. I was up all night doing edits and stuff, and I looked at the clock and I was like, oh man, it was 8 o'clock here. I was like, man, if I want to be up at 5 o'clock, I better go to sleep. Next thing you know, man, 9 o'clock's there, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go lay down. So I ended up just now getting on, so I apologize.
No need to apologize.
I'm gonna listen.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's I was gonna say, yeah. Anyway, this episode's been about the artwork of Leonardo, to do with the symbolism, to do with his paintings, and also notes of it, sacred geometry, stuff like that. So, and Bob Dub is liking my posts on Facebook now, so I get notifications, ding dong, so you can hear it. Yeah, so that's what this has been about so far.
When I looked at this artwork, the thing that struck me more than anything else is that there is no code as such. People keep going on about codes and how it's been put in there for generations later on to find out there is no code. There is no code. This is natural, everyday beliefs from these artists. And they took a big, as I said, they took a big chance in putting these symbols in there because it's their belief, but it was an undercover belief because they would have been burnt at the stake. And I'm surprised they weren't, to be honest with you. I have no idea why Leonardo da Vinci wasn't burnt at the stake for what he done. Yeah. When he done the Last Supper as well, I looked into the Last Supper. And after finding out about the planets and everything else, I looked at the Last Supper and it's almost like I could see it in a different light. He painted them in sets of 3. Originally, there were 13 apostles, but he painted the apostles, the 12 that were there, in sets of 3. Now, I wanted to know, why would you do that? He was a very, very, very good painter. He was an amazing sketch artist, and why would he do them in sets of 3? And the only answer I could get back was because he used to do them in 3, so he could do 3, let them dry, and then do the next 3. But that doesn't ring true with me at all, because it would have obviously been sketched out beforehand, and he could have carried on doing them singularly, one there, then one at the other end. And then by the time he's done that first one's dry, he done the next one that he could have done it like that, but he didn't. He done them in sets of 3. So I thought, as the rest of his artwork was very pagan, that there would be pagan thought gone behind painting them in sets of 3. And I started, it just hit me one day that there are 4 seasons. So there's 3 sets of 4 with him in the center. So if he's pagan, and then it started to become clearer, he represents the sun. And everything else are the star alignments and the zodiac signs and the months of the year and the seasons, all floating around this central point. Because if you look at him in the painting, this is, you can still go and see this painting, by the way. It's in a dinner hall in Milan. He's got one hand upwards and the other hand down. Let's get it on screen now. He's sitting there like that. And that's, you know, that's not the comfiest of positions to sit in. And all I could see was as above, so below, because I'd stumbled across it before. So I think within this painting, he was giving us again more of his belief system. He was saying in this painting, as far as I was concerned, Jesus represents the sun with all the planets and all the seasons and all the zodiac signs are all floating around him, circling. And that was my thoughts on it. And I think there are a few other researchers that have come across that, obviously before me. This was never a quest to say I found the truth. All I found was the other researchers that have researched this for a lot longer than I did. This whole thing was just a quest to see whether it was to give me the knowledge that I was thirsty for at the time, because I've still got quite a thirst for all this knowledge. It's just that I keep coming across the same stuff over and over again now, so the amount I'm learning now is diminished immensely. But yeah, it was to do with my mental state at the time and prove that I'm not going mad and seeing all this go on around me, all the synchronistic events. So that's where I started delving, and the two of them met. So I don't think I'm mad anymore.
No.
Some people disagree.
Leonardo da Vinci used to fascinate me because he did some sketches of inventions, didn't he? A helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember, and I'm going back years.
Scissors.
I've seen all this.
Scissors,
like
submarine, loads of stuff.
Yeah. And you're thinking, well, how do you think of something like this from... You haven't even got any flying machines around you, and yet you're thinking of this intricate device.
Yeah.
It just thinks, like, was he I don't know. It's just trying to get my mind around it. How we could come up with something like that, you know?
I think the inspiration has come again from DMT.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
And the same with Nikola Tesla, another genius.
Yeah. Sorry, Roger.
Can I ask you your take on something, Mike?
Yeah, of course you can.
Have you ever seen the painting Saint Michael in Defeating the Devil, where
No.
Saint Michael has his foot on the devil's head?
It rings a bell, but I can't recall it.
No. Whenever I started checking into some of the paintings and everything they have over in Europe, that there was something there that was pointed out to me, and it was supposed to be the fact that there's a story behind that. Like, you know how you were talking about everything symbolic?
Yeah.
With,
I've got a picture right in front of me now.
With Saint Michael having his foot on the devil's head, there's a story behind that goes back to Zoroastrianism.
Right.
And here lately, everything that Bob Dub and Vincent's been talking about when it comes to materialism and stuff like that, it just keeps making me think of that painting. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's fine when they think Saint Michael has his foot on top of the devil's head, you know what I mean? But the moment he freaking jiggles loose, everybody starts freaking out, you know what I mean? And a lot of people, I believe back then, who were self-proclaimed Christians, I believe personally, had a freaking belief system with Zoroastrianism too, because like they would make paintings like that with messages inside of it,
Yeah.
So, and every time they talk now, it's like that painting sticks out to me. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
He's got the sword in his hand as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's really, really. The best way I could say is it's really esoteric. When you look at that picture, it's got a lot of symbolism in it.
Yeah, much so, very much so. What's that in the background? I can't even see what it's got. Some sort of castle to the background on the left as well. He's got his wings there. Oh no, that might be the edge of his wings. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. See, our belief system has changed so drastically, and I think it's been willfully changed. So we look at a painting now and we can't see much in it other than a nice painting, but it actually meant something to these artists. They didn't just do it. And a good explanation of this is if you listen to any songwriter, Elton John, for example, he didn't just write these songs. These songs were inspiration from his life, what he was feeling at the time. And George Michael was exactly the same. What they're feeling at the time, they put down onto paper in musical notes and then sat there for a few hours, putting some music around these words that meant something. And I think artists were exactly the same. It was when you look at any sort of painting, you're looking at a glimpse of what's inside that artist's mind.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it's fascinating. I get fascinated with paintings. I really do.
I think artists like the ones you mentioned, where their paintings are sort of like a channeling.
Yes.
And I can write. I've written songs in the past and made film. I made like solo podcasts, and I don't even know what I'm going to say. But when I start talking, it's like I'm visualizing my journey as I'm the subject I'm talking about. So it's being channeled to me as I'm making it. So I think with these artists, and the same with a lot of filmmakers, showmakers, sometimes they're getting the ideas and they're channeling ideas. Sometimes we're getting little glimpses of the future, or maybe something in their picture will make sense to someone one day watching. Think, oh wow, that makes sense. It's just because they're channeling, but they don't realize it. They're just creating a film, but they subconsciously maybe bringing a bit of the outside magic into the pictures, into their shows, into the videos, films, or whatever. And I think that's what these artists, especially back there, because there was no television, there was no movies. It was like he spent days, weeks, years doing his painting. Well, it's gonna come out, isn't it? It's gonna, you know what I mean?
Now this ties in with something that it's just hit me like a sledgehammer, a realization. I've always been told I'm a voiceover by trade, as a radio presenter. So I'm sitting in my studio, my voiceover studio now, and I've got a little booth behind me. You can't see it because I built a pyramid in front of it. There's a booth, a sound booth behind me now. It looks a bit messy in here anyway. I've always been told by different mediums that this is the place where I am closest to the other side spiritually. And this is the place that they visit me, the other side. And I've taken all this with a pinch of salt until you started talking just then. This is the place where they're closest to me, and this is where I'll get contact with it. Now, I think there's a link, because of what you just said, between creativity and channeling.
Yeah.
I think people who are creative and put themselves into a creative frame of mind, doesn't matter where it is, it's got nothing to do with a place. It could be a building site. But if you're in a creative space, which is the right side of your brain, the side that is the subconscious, and the side that is connected 100% to an alternate dimension, if you put yourself in a creative place, you're opening the gateway for channeling, because artists do it, songwriters do it. I've been told this is the place when I'm working that I'm closest to it. I mean, I've never knowingly channeled anything, to be honest with you, apart from once. I had a very strange experience once. And also, when I was writing the book, it's a very creative procedure. When you write a book, I had a ghostwriter that just rearranged it. Or we took my words and just rearranged all the chapters so that it all made sense. He said to me, Mike, if you get inspiration, you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning if you can. Get up. If you get inspiration in the middle of the night, get up and go and write a couple of chapters. And when I was writing the book, I came across 3 situations that were the strangest situations that I've ever been in. And it's never happened since. And I'll explain it again in case there's anybody that hasn't heard me talk about this. I was sitting in my room in Romford, in the flat, in the second bedroom, and I had pieces of paper, and I've still got them all over the blinds in front of me now, different signs and whatever, different phrases from the Egyptian Book of the Dead and Buddha and Albert Einstein. And I was sitting there and I'm putting it, and in my room, it was bits of paper all over the walls. It was like a nutty professor's room. It looked, because I was trying to work something out. I was trying to get this out of my head and down onto paper so I didn't keep going over and over and over it in my head. And then I read something on one of the screens on my computer. It was just a one line, and that one line triggered what can only be described as an avalanche of information. Since this time, I've spoken to a few mediums, and they've gone, oh, as if it's nothing. Oh, yeah, no, you've had a download. That's all that is. And because I'm a bit of a computer geek, it was like a download, like you're downloading from a computer into a hard drive. So I understood it with the word download. But I hit this one line, and then it went, information streaming, hitting me. And I went, it was just, and I'll remember the feeling now, it was overwhelming. And that happened 3 times when I was writing the book. When I hit a particular line, it happened. When I hit the line again, when I read the line again after that fact, it didn't happen anymore. So it had nothing particularly to do with that line. And all I can say was, yeah, all right, well, I think it was a download. That's the closest I can come. But it was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. Do you know when you walk into a swimming pool and it's a cold swimming pool, but it's hot outside, and you go, it hits round the belly area, and you go, and you can't quite, it can't quite catch your breath. It was that, exactly that. And the first time it happened in the flat, I went, stop. And it just went, stop dead. So I went and got a cup of coffee. I came back, sat down again. And I said out loud, I was only the only person in the flat. Okay, show me again slowly, because the visuals in my mind's eye that went with this was jigsaw pieces all falling into place. And it created a pathway. So I said, show me again. So and the pieces did come, the jigsaw pieces, very, very, very slowly though. And I was just writing it down on the computer. I was typing it down on the computer, what I was seeing, what I was told. And all this mess that was on the walls at that particular point all got put together in a particular order, and they started creating what we'd call it now a timeline. Although there was no dates attached to each piece, there was just a story, really. And that's where the Moses and the burning bush piece came into it. That was one of the pieces. So yeah, it happened 3 times when I was writing the book. Hasn't happened since. So I think there's something to do with creativity, and I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said channeling.
Yeah. I remember, what was it? Talking with someone, and they said, "Do you channel?" Because back then, most of my channeling was done through healing. I wasn't talking on any shows or anything like that, and I I didn't even think of healing as being channeling back then. I just said, I tried to type, "No, I don't channel." I wrote it down, tried to write it down, said, "Yes, I channel." I thought, I didn't write that. So I did it again. Tried to write down, "No, I don't channel." "Yes, I channel." I thought, what the hell? I couldn't, he wouldn't let me type, I couldn't channel. And then I realised, damn, I am. I'm healing. I just never thought of it. I just didn't. I know it's coming from the other side. It's not through, it's working through me. But I just never realised I was actually channeling. And lo and behold, when I tried to write, I didn't. He wouldn't let me. It just wouldn't let me write it. So,
as Leonardo said, we bridged the gap between the two worlds.
yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. I went to see she was a medium, a lovely, lovely woman. So I went round her house to watch a channeling experience, if you like. And then there was about 8 of us. And my mum had a very distinct way of holding. It was a very loving way of holding my face. Just before she kissed me on the forehead. And I got up, and the woman was in a trance, and she said to me, come over here. So I went over towards her, and the woman put her hands on my face exactly the same way as my mum had done hundreds of times before. And then when she came out of it, she said, "Look, I don't know why I done that." She said, "I was just told to do that." And it was very loving. And it was exactly the way my mum would do it. So I think there is a big, big link between creativity and the other side getting in contact with us. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yeah, it just reminded me, I went to see a fortune teller in 1989, and my mother had previously been to see her in the 70s, but I didn't know this till after. I was just told about her, so I went to see her, and she was an elderly lady. She had a stroke, her hand was all disabled, it was all like this, she couldn't straighten it out and everything. Within seconds, she found the link between me and my mother. She told me my mother was and everything. It was like about 15 years before, and yet there in a second she linked us both and explained, and then told me about my future and stuff, which probably took about 10 years for it all to come through, but everything she said came true. And she used to help police find missing children and stuff. They always used to go to her, and she was an amazing woman, but I think she's long gone by now, I would have thought, because this is 1989, and I was saying now it's 30 years later now.
Yeah,
but she was an amazing woman. And you're saying about your sign from your mum. I had this something happened. I saw on Facebook something about people saying, "Oh, you should ask people for signs if your loved ones for signs." So I sat down in my kitchen one day and I said, I think I had it in my mind, for my mum to show me she was still there by giving me a hug. And next thing I'm sitting there, and I got embraced, and there was no one around, and I thought, oh my God, and I know it was her, and it was like, wow. And I thought to myself, I've been grieving this person for 35 odd years, whatever, 40 years, whatever it was at the time, and now you've just shown me she's here. And it's just like,
she's next to you.
Yeah, and it was like, what the hell? and my grief massively went from that experience. It took me a few days it was quite emotional for a few days. My emotions went topsy-turvy about 3-4 days, then they settled down. And almost every year, I think it was around a birthday that I did this, almost every year after it's on a birthday, she gives me little signs, just to let me know she's around. So that's been the last few years.
These are the things, synchronistic events, that we just accept these things, and write them off. I think these things, I think I said in another podcast with you, I think these things happen to us hundreds of times each day on such a minuscule level that we don't even notice them anymore. When they become a little bit more meaningful, we start to notice them, but we write them off as a coincidence. And it's only the top 2% or 3% that are really heavy duty synchronistic events that we notice and then we always go, "Oh, that was strange." I think they're there with all of us throughout the whole day.
Well, I don't know if I should share this, but it's going to go on my new podcast anyway, but more in depth. But basically, the other night, went to bed. I was awake, closed my eyes within 10 seconds. I instantly, my mother passed away in front of me in 1982. She was in my room because I had a TV then. And I never thought about that time since that moment. It's never come in my mind at all. But here I was, a few seconds into closing my eyes, boom, I was there, right at the point where she passed away. And I was like, what the hell am I doing here? I'd never been there, not even a nightmare, I'd never even thought about it until this came into my head. And I remember thinking to myself, it's okay, I know you're going home. Instead of, the instinct was for the grief to take over, but it was like in my head saying, no, it's okay, you're going home. And then I sort of came out of it a bit, and then I went back in it. When I went back in it, my mother's soul was there, but she was standing there. I could see she was there. She was also obviously passed away on the bed, but I could see her soul standing there to show me that she was with me. But the important thing about this, after my mum passed away, I sensed her presence for up to 8-9 years after she passed away. It was really close. I could feel it.
Yeah.
And because I saw this, she basically showed me visually that she was there anyway, even though I knew it. She actually put the pieces together, like you were saying with the jigsaw puzzle. And it was like I was shown she was there. The moment it happened, she was there waiting because she knew I needed her to be around because it was obviously a massive emotional experience and what have you. And that happened the other night. And I was wide awake. I wasn't dreaming. It just happened. All within a few seconds, it was like, what the hell happened? Just happened, you know? And I did feel something lifted off me. After that happened, it just felt something just lift. I don't know what, but I did feel different. I'm not really sure if it was grief or whatever. I don't really know, but I did feel something lifted as well. So, but it was like, wow,
these
moment,
sorry,
you know?
these things are very common. When you go into, because I looked into near-death experiences, and when you go into that, you stumble across people that know their relative has passed but haven't been told yet. Yeah. And I experienced that once with my father. I was a milkman at the time. This was before I started writing the book, and before any of this, I was a very material person. So I'm on my milk round, excuse me, and I'm putting the milk down the doorstep. So I've gone back into the wagon again, and I got this really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was terribly wrong. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is it? What? And I'd had an argument with my fiance the night before. And I thought, no, it's that. What I'll do is I'll buy her a bunch of flowers and say, yeah, come on, let's not argue anymore. You know, usual stuff blokes go through. I'll get that on the way home. So, and that put this feeling to rest, because I've been able to bang a nail into it. And I know what it is now. But I still had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. So I've gone out of that road, turned the bottom. So it was about half an hour later, I've gone into the next road. And then all of a sudden, one of the vans, small vans, have turned up. And one of the guys that on the milk round at the back of the depot, he'd got out and he went, come on, mate. He said, you've got to go home. So why? What's the matter? He went, we've just had a phone call. Your dad's just died. And it was exactly when I had that feeling he died, halfway round between where I was and where I was back then and where I am now, halfway round, she would have phoned the depot, and it would have took the depot about 10 minutes to get a van out to me. So it was that feeling right back then that was my father dying. So I went home, I went into the flat, and I could still feel his presence. Yeah. Nothing had changed. So I said to Mum, "You all right?" She was going, "Oh, yeah." He's obviously crying. She said, "He's in the bedroom." And what happened was he got up. He didn't feel too well, and it was just a massive heart attack he had. And he went back to bed. He laid down, and that was it. He went. So I walked into the room and I'd seen him laying in bed thousands of times as growing up, thousands of times. This time it was different. He was laying in bed. It looked like he was just asleep. That wasn't him, John.
No.
And that was the big, big nagging feeling in the back of my head. I know he's in this room because I can feel his presence, but that's not him. And it seems a weird thing to say, but it was such a weird feeling. I got this overwhelming feeling. I wanted to look in cupboards because I knew he was there, but that's not him. That's not my dad. So, and that feeling that you know something's happened, it happens so many times to these near-death experiences and people just around this whole subject.
I've actually heard experiences like that a couple of times. An old friend of mine, Mike Riley, his father had passed away, and it wasn't him; it was his little brother. He ended up having a weird sensation go through his body. He said it felt like whenever he puts his leather jacket on, it just freaking came over his back, like you know what I mean, like whenever you throw your jacket on.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming like that. And I've heard, I'd say 2 or 3 other people say stuff like that too, where they've experienced sensations like that, and they just knew that they were in the room. You know what I mean? I've never had it to where somebody said they seen the body and knew that they weren't there before, but like that feeling you're talking about, you know what I mean?
It's a strange feeling, very strange.
Yeah. No, it took me a while to wake up and get things straight, but on that stuff you was talking about with the sketches and how they did things in threes, you brought up the number 3 again, so you got me started. Yeah. Okay. So
I remember you saying that from last time. I've been thinking about this quite a bit.
Now, I'm not Vince and Julian, so I'm not as much of a pro as those two are at this numerology stuff, but I can run some things by you that I learned myself from Pythagorean.
Oh yeah, please do.
By Pythagoras. Now 3 is the number. It's an ideal number because it has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Right.
And it was the smallest number of points that could be used to define the plane triangle. Okay. Now the Pythagoreans, they revered it, the symbol, and they thought of it as the symbol for the god Apollo back in the day. So I believe that whenever they go on further, like the number 4 has the 4 elements and stuff, but like when it comes to number 3, that was the symbol that represented the symbol for Apollo, which is the sun god, basically. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's what I found in Christianity, the sun god.
Mm-hmm. Now, sacred geometry. Have you done any research into sacred geometry by any chance?
I've done very little. We spoke about this at the start of this podcast. Very little, but when I stumbled across the orbit of Venus and Mercury and beehives and wasp nests and Saturn atop of Saturn, I'm finding the same shape appearing. Just on this subject as well, sacred geometry, the Vitruvian Man, this just jogs something, has got 4 points. And when it's pointing upwards, it means the spirit world is in control of what's going on in reality down here in the terrestrial world, which again is as above, so below. So everything keeps going back to this. And I went through a stage, Roger, of finding sacred geometry in flowers and staircases, winding staircase. I found it a fascinating subject, but I didn't go too heavily into it.
Okay. Now, just so you know, too, Apollo's birthday was celebrated on the 7th day of every month.
I was born on the 7th.
See, it's pretty interesting how all that works.
Yeah.
But and it's like I said, I'm no pro like those two, but I figured I'd pull it up because you mentioned number 3 again, and I knew that number 3 is really important when it comes to numerology and stuff. So I wanted to point that out for you.
I would love to have a chat with one of these numerologists if anybody can put me in contact with one. I don't know the time. I stopped this years ago. I was looking into this slightly, just on the outskirts of it. And I wanted my birth chart put together because I wanted to see how accurate they can actually be. Everything gets brought back to numbers. Everything. The whole thing of this reality. And this is why, again, another reason that the quantum physicists are saying this is a computer simulation, like the Sims on a computer, that we are just going through the motions and doing what the signal that we receive. Tesla told us there was a signal that he receives. We do what we're told to do, which fits, again, when you go right the way back to the starting of this, when my friend Russell's death, he had to be in that place at that time. I had to be taken out of the way. There had to be that specific key in front of the woman to put him in that room. That specific house, the flat he was looking at, opposite, had to be the last one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone, let's try there. And the more I go back to this, we are all like toy soldiers marching to the beat of someone else's drum. Yes, we've got free will. You can choose what colour socks to put on. This is my belief. There's some people that say the whole thing is you've got free will over the whole thing. And I find that difficult to believe because I've been manipulated and put into this particular place to do and put him in that room. So he had to die in that room on that night to set this whole ball rolling. And if we had free will, I don't believe he would have done that. So, yes, you can choose what pants to put on, what trousers, what T-shirt. Do you want to wear your glasses now or later? Or do you want to brush your hair or not brush your hair? Because they are seemingly meaningless things that go on. So you've got free will on that, 100%. I believe when you're given a lesson, you're given free will at that particular point, because the point of all this that I've been finding out is to expand consciousness, is to push everybody's consciousness closer to love than love or hate. Everybody has to lean towards love. And you only know what love is when you understand what hate is. And it's the same with up. You only know what up is when you see down. You only know what black is when you see white. You only know what square is when you see a circle. And it's the duality of this reality that teaches us the lessons to be loving. And I really do believe love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is an illusion.
I believe what you said there. I also think, like with my mum and dad, like, how can you say, my mum died when I was very young, and obviously I'd change it tomorrow if I could. She'd still be here if I could have my way.
Yeah.
But I know I wouldn't be on the screen now. If she'd still be around, I wouldn't be here now, because I had to sort of grow up quick after she passed away, and it's just made me the person I am. I wouldn't be this person if it hadn't happened. If that makes sense. Even down to my father passed away when I was 40, and he had a little bit of money. He left me a little bit of money, but because of confusion and different things that went on, and a hopeless solicitor, it took over 3 years before I actually got the money that I was supposed to have of him. Which you might think, oh, that's not very good, but it came just at the time where I got separated from my now divorced ex-wife. Came just at the right time, so I could set up a place of my own. I was rented because to get furniture in a place that I was renting, and it was just at the perfect time. If it had come a year after he passed away, then I would have had the money when I was still with my ex-wife. So it would have been whatever spent, whatever. Because it got delayed for all different silly reasons, it came just the perfect time for me to be able to buy myself a PS3, TV, a new kind of sofa, it's the essentials, Don't eat as long as I got a TV, stuff like that. It came just at the perfect time, you know what I mean? And it was just like, well, wow, it just was spot on that time. And yet, if you focus on the negative thing, why did it? Why? Well, I would have moved into that place, but it would take me a lot longer to found all the stuff that I eventually got for it. You know what I mean? It would have. So everything happens for a reason. It's what I try and tell people is to try not to focus on the negative. When the bad shit is happening, it's happening. Yeah, it's not nice. Yeah, fair enough. But it's happening for a reason. There's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be something that when you come out of it, there's going to be a reason for it. And I try to tell people to try to focus on to get beyond the negative, because when you like in martial arts, because I've done kickboxing before, when you're in martial arts, they tell you if you're gonna punch someone's face, you don't aim just to hit them there. You're aiming to punch past their face.
Yeah.
And I use this the same thing with negative and positive. You try to get beyond if the negative's there, you try to see beyond it. Try to get past it. You can't always do it with human beings, we're human bodies. We can't always do it. But that's my view on life, is to try to do that, That's what I aim to try and do.
I was trained in Wing Chun, which is a branch of Kung Fu, basically. It's what Bruce Lee used to use. And the first thing they teach you, if you feel any resistance, don't keep going that way. It's not, otherwise it becomes a test of strength. It becomes a test of will, and only the strongest person and the strongest minded person is going to win out of those two things. So instead of, if you go to punch somebody and they've put their arm up, don't keep pressing to try and connect the punch. Go around the arm and go the opposite way, because then they will keep pressing and they'll you got them off balance. And it works so well. You see so many people, even my son, I'm sending my son to Wing Chun now, and this is such a big metaphor for life. If you keep banging your head against a brick wall and you're not getting anywhere, stop, and the other door will open. And it happens every single time. And that's the phrase, when one door closes, another one opens. But so many people, myself included, you become so not cocky, that's the wrong word, but you become so confident that this is the right way, and you try to force it to happen. Never happens. Never ever happens. So if you relax, you'll see another door. You'll see another way round it. And I've done that hundreds of times.
Yeah. I had how can I say? I was driving home one day, and a very close friend of mine, my actual kickboxing instructor, but we knew each other from we were kids. He committed suicide back, would have been about 2011. And lo and behold, about 4 years later, me and my partner happened to go to a shop in the town where he used to live, looking to get trainers, because we were both running back then. Pure coincidence, I hadn't come in a conversation, I'm talking about my friend, and the person I was talking to, the shop owner, said, "Oh yeah, I'm best mates with his wife." I thought, oh wow, didn't expect that to happen. And she said, yeah, he had depression. I thought, oh my God. And I never knew, none of us ever knew, because he was so cheerful, such a wild persona, you just did not know. And I thought, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So anyway, going back last year, I always rattled my brain why he did it. Still, even though I knew he was depressed, I sort of still was always, it was there. And one day I was driving my car, and he came to me, and I was driving my car, and he showed me, this is how I can put into words what he showed me. He fell into a well of despair. That's why he did what he did. He hung himself. And when I reflected on it, I was told that's a lot of people who commit suicide. That's what happens to them. They fall into this well of despair, and they think it's the only way out is to kill themselves forever. When I was shown, there's always a silver chain. There's always a way out. But you just, because you're so focused
Yeah,
on
that's
this,
right.
you don't see it. But it's there. It's always someone there. No, this way. Come this way. It'll be fine. But they don't see it, and that's what I was shown. And it was like, wow. It was like quite, quite a wow moment, And I haven't thought really no more of him since, because I'm at peace with the whole situation now. Now I know what's happened, And
I had a weird, similar experience when one of my friends passed. I was always really, really, really friendly with this guy, and then I'd heard that he'd passed away. And years before, we had an argument. It was a nonsense argument. It was over such a silly thing, but we never spoke to each other again. And then I heard he'd passed, and then I had a sleep on the sofa. And just as I was falling into a deep sleep, so I was still aware, but my awareness was fading, and the dream was taking over. I had this vivid visual picture of him coming back, and he had his arm round me, and he's just smiling with his head to one side, and he just had his arm round me, hugging me. And I went bump straight away. What the hell was that? And I would put money now, knowing what I know about all this. I would put money him saying, "Look, sorry, mate. That's how it come across. Sorry, mate. It was my fault. Sorry." So, and do you know what? I've never thought about any of the problems that I've had with him since that particular moment. But before that, it always hurt me that the situation arose that he done what he done and whatever. But now it done. All debts are paid now.
I had a friend of mine too that kind of went through that. And when you were talking about kickboxing, my friend, he was MMA. He was into the MMA stuff, and a thing that I strongly do believe in is the head injuries when it comes to that. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that when you go into that kind of sport, you're really putting yourself in a lot of danger when it comes to head injuries and stuff, because my friend, his name was Sean Chance, and he went into MMA, and he had a full head of hair and freaking teeth and everything, and by the time it was done, man, he had teeth missing and shit. He was in his 20s, and they told him straight up that he had head injuries because of the damage that was done. And what happened is he ended up getting in a relationship with one of my ex-girlfriends when I lived in Kansas City, and she ended up having his son, and they got into an argument, and he went down in the basement and freaking committed suicide, and that's exactly what he did. I loved him to death, don't get me wrong, but when he did that kind of it didn't sit right with me, you know what I mean? So and the reason why I had a problem with it was because freaking he had a little baby that he left behind, and for me, I just don't understand how a person could leave people behind with that kind of stress and pain and anguish, because it's the people you leave behind that hurts the most out of it, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I had that happen in my life too. He had a baby and a girlfriend and everything, and like I said, he was one of my best friends. I don't intentionally mean to speak out of the way to him, about him, but it just that is pretty messed up. That's all I got.
I think some people, no one that I know, have done that, committed suicide. They get it in their mind, oh, I'll show you, argument, and not thinking the fact that, hang on, I'm not going to be here anymore to do this. They just do it without, like, they just focus, oh, I'll show you now. And then they just do it, and or maybe they even like do it in a way sometimes, thinking, oh, I'll be found, or some people even do that. It depends on the nature of how they try it, of course. And I think that's just what it is. It's just tunnel vision. They just focus on it and they're not thinking the fact, hang on, I'm not going to be here tomorrow if I do this. They don't think about that. I do think that some people, that's why it happens. But no one I know, no one in my circle. But that's my theory of it, you know.
It sounds like a form of control, because that's, if you can't control what's happening to you around you, I can control me.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. Yeah.
And when you talk to psychologists, you find out that there is no control. They know there's no control. You don't control anything other than your own thoughts and your own actions. And even the actions part, now, going through what I've been through, the actions part is seeming doubtful, because I've been manipulated 100% and put in positions that are so meaningful. It's just ridiculous. I could never have made that decision to put me there, because I never knew that was coming around the corner. So that's another thing that makes me think that if you're supposed to be on a street corner at a particular time, because the wheel has got to come off that car and hit you in the forehead, then you'll be there. Struggle as much as you want, but you'll be there. If that's supposed to happen, if that's written in the Akashic records or whatever they call them, the Hall of Records, if that's written at that particular time, you're going to be there.
Yeah.
So you can't control anything external to your mind. Your mind is all you have control over. And even that's doubtful sometimes. 95% of your everyday actions come from a pre-programmed response from your subconscious. And you put a pre-programmed response into your subconscious by doing something, the same thing, exactly the same way, 21 times. For example, being a radio presenter, I get into the studio and I move all the little things, even to the position of the telephone. I move all the things on the desk in front of me, so I know where everything is, and it's always put in exactly the same position. So I get up at the end of my show and the next presenter sits down, and I've noticed the next presenter does exactly the same thing, but their position is different to my position. They move things. And you watch anyone, because being a DJ for so many years, I'm a people watcher. Everybody's got this thing going on with them, and it's built up from 21 times doing the same thing from your subconscious.
You want to see my desk? Oh my God, stuff everywhere.
This is like a tip. It's really.
I got my boys' toys on the desk. Everything.
It's weird that it's weird that you brought that up, though, because like with John, what he was saying too, it kind of links into that. But like I've actually had conversations with like my sisters and everybody about this stuff, and here in West Frankfort, where I'm at, there was a suicide that happened where it was just down the way from my niece's house, and this guy was. The weird part about it was like it was tunnel vision, like John was talking about, but he was very methodical. It wasn't just a thought, I'm going to do it, and he doesn't think about it. He planned his suicide out.
Really?
Okay. He put freaking all of the information on the kitchen table to where people could see what he wanted done with his freaking will and everything, his house. He organized his freaking clothes and put them up to where they could take care of them, put them in boxes and stuff, and things like that. And he did all this before he walked out into his front yard and hung himself on a tree.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I mean, he literally walked out into his front yard and hung himself on a tree after organizing all this stuff and making sure it was ready. And that was one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it actually did happen, but I thought that was strange, and then I found out that there's more situations where people do that. You know, it wasn't just him. Like people plan how they're going to die, and like you said, with control. You know, it's like it's a control issue. They think
Yeah.
they have complete control.
Yeah.
And they're in that tunnel vision. It's really weird how you guys brought that up because I didn't even think about it until I started listening to you two.
I think some people. This is where I forgot about this. This is what I was shown as well when I was showing about my friend with this well of despair. He showed me that he'd been thinking about it for a long, long time, but nothing had ever pushed him until a certain situation. I think he was training for a triathlon and he got injured, and it really like upset him. I think that was the catalyst to it all, and how it ended up. But he showed me that he'd been thinking about it and for a long, long time. So maybe Roger's friend has been thinking about it, and a certain situation, an argument, pushed him over to the fact that, I'm going to do this now. And that's why he did what he did, because it had been pre-planned in his mind maybe for years. He'd been thinking about how he's going to do it, what I'm going to write down, because it was pre-planned. It just needed like the bullet, so to speak, to set him to actually to do it. You know what I mean? That's what I think. That's my theory of it. Yeah, just a theory.
Just he needed a catalyst.
Catalyst, yeah.
Mm.
So, I'm a cheerful bunch, isn't he?
Well, you've got to understand. I mean, my brother was very dead set against there being anything after death. Death is the end of it. It's finished. It's over and done with. And I'm going, it seems like such a waste of time.
Mm.
You know, we're not born to pay bills and to watch television and eat cream cakes and then die. I mean, what's the point? There's no point in it. And I believe in a natural evolution, a natural. We're going from one place to another, and just because we can't see where we're going, where we're heading, and what we're doing, it doesn't mean to say there isn't a greater meaning for it, which is my brother was very a control person, and I am very let go of the reins and just see what happens. I've said things to people before now. In my head, I've gone, say that, see what happens. So I say it, and it goes off, and I think, right, I won't say that again. So I'm like a walking experiment. I'm constantly thinking and delving deeper, and my mind is it works at about 5,000 miles an hour. It really does, and I have to keep it busy, otherwise it does really start getting me down, because I worry about something that I've said. I think I said this to you before. So worry about something I said to somebody 25 years ago, so I have to keep my mind busy. You know, and that's why I get little computers and I build this and I build that, and my wife calls it project. Oh, you got another project? So, right, okay. Then I have to keep these things going. So this, when I started researching all this Da Vinci stuff, it really fitted in with my mind because it just kept it busy.
That's what the YouTube was for me. Pretty much was to keep me busy because I was looking after my son. Sort of started off like ideas to make videos, and but I thought to myself, no, I don't know how to do it and all that. And he went, it was a call-in, it was, but I'm not going to go into that now. And when I started making the videos, it was such a relief. I thought, this is what I meant to do this. And it just gone from there, you know. It was like, yes, this is what I'm here for. And it just started off as an idea, you know. It is, now when I look back at it, I can see it was, call it what you want, your higher self, whatever it was. It was just them delicately, just like putting a worm out there, fishing rod, you know, just, you know, look over this way, look over that way, start thinking about it, and I started to resist. I said, no, come on, you could be doing this, you could be doing that. And then when I was hooked on it, that was it then. There was no looking back. And that was it. But
Well, I've come across a few situations very similar to that, but years and years and years ago, I used to run a mobile disco company on my credit card. So I had £9,000 worth of debt on this card years and years ago. This was 30 odd, 40 odd years ago when I first started. And I'd built the debt up through buying equipment. And then one day I just woke up and I went, oh, no, do you know what? I'm going to pay that off. I'm going to pay that off for the credit card. And then it went 6 months later down the line. I see a news report that obviously it was a slow news day, and they made this report up about more people are now paying this particular credit card off than ever before. They're now paying it off more than ever before, and I thought that's a bit weird. It's almost as if I had this push to do this, and I didn't know where it came from. And recently as well, another one recently, my wife said to me about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, she said, do you know what? It might be a good idea if we get rid of the bath and put a shower in. So I said to her, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do something like that? She said, I don't know. He said, I prefer having showers than I do baths. And I just think it would be a nicer, better idea. And then about 6 weeks ago, this was, at the radio station that I do the breakfast show on, I was listening to the news, and the news read a report out that more people are getting rid of their baths and putting showers in than ever before. And I went, do you know what? This is really weird. It's just as if our lives are not our own, and we're going down this path that's been set out for us, and we're being directed and pushed. And every time this happens, it fits in with everything that I've found, that we're all just animals. We're all like puppets. We're just doing what we're told to do, basically. We all think we've got the brain. We've got when you come across intelligent people understand the fact that they're not really in control, whereas semi-intelligent people think that they're in control of everything. So, it just, we're not in control. We're not in control at all. This thing is driving itself virtually, and we're just a puppet.
yeah,
I agree with you on that. Well, I was talking about Vince and all them on there with Bob Dub, and they talk about what is it, determinist, and then there's supposed to be soft determinism and hard determinism.
Yeah.
And I listen to what they say, but then I also think, I'm like, there's a certain level to everything. Like, you can't say that you have free will over everything, because first of all, there's you, there's John, there's me, there's freaking everybody else in the world. Okay, what your views and how you do things don't jive with me. You know what I mean? Because we all do things in a different way. So I don't have control over situations where it concerns us three interacting together. You know what I mean? Because you're going to want something a certain way. John's going to want something a certain way. And that's just the way it is. That has nothing to do with spiritual or anything else. That just has to do with people interacting with one another, Yeah. And I think people forget that they don't understand it on a real life level. You know what I mean? Like, living a real life, doing real things, you realize that you have to interact with other people. And when you're interacting with other people, you might as well take that control bullshit and just throw it out the freaking door, because it's not going to work. And I mean, that's the one thing that always sticks out to me. It's like there's no real reality when it comes to these philosophers, because they get stuck in their head, start thinking, and they're thinking and they're thinking and they're thinking, and it's just in their head. It's not real life, So
yeah,
I always try to keep that in mind whenever I listen to them, because I know there's theory, and then there's freaking fact. It's like science, okay? Like you have you have the scientist and then you have an engineer. Okay. The scientist comes up with the freaking theories, and then the engineers tell him, no, that's not going to work. You're an idiot. This is how you do it. You know what I mean? But if you take a look at it, everybody always looks at the scientists like they're so much better, you know what I mean? And they kind of look down on the engineer. But in reality, it's the engineer that makes things happen, you know?
Right. That's right. 100%.
So
if you look back,
that's just...
Go on, sorry.
That's just my point of view on things is all.
When you look back on time, science is we're almost treading over old ground. They're coming up with theories that were described as fact thousands of years ago because of the use of this dimethyltryptamine drugs. So they go, oh, this is our theory on the world. Well, no, hang on a minute. This particular person in time, 3,000 years ago, said this, and now you're just coming to the conclusion that, well, yeah, no, we're getting facts now to prove that. Well, he said it. He's been there. He's done it. And that's I think it was Leonardo da Vinci. Was it da Vinci? No, it wasn't da Vinci. I can't remember who said it now. That if the minute science, it might have been Tesla, the minute science starts looking into these unseen forces, it will make so many leaps forward faster than it's ever done before. That was the gist of it, saying if when science starts to look properly into the occult, if you want, it will start to prove it, and we'll take a lot of leaps forward. And I personally think, because this year is supposed to be a very revealing year, I think it's an evolutionary step that we're going through that was predicted by the Mayans and whatever since 2012. It's the return of Mother Nature. That's the second coming, as far as I'm concerned. It's the return of the original faith where we've got to love Earth. And I think this is an evolutionary step we're going through, where we'll all suddenly come to the same conclusion that, hang on a minute, this is not working the way we've been doing things, so we've got to change our ways. Because if you look at recycling and electric cars, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, even the protesters just stop oil and save the whale and ban the bomb, and there's been loads over the years. And when you look into the 60s in the UK, I think this was quite large in America as well, you had the flower power. Well, these people were taking LSD and particular drugs that contained dimethyltryptamine, and they were coming off it and saying, right, that's it, we've got to ban the bomb, we've got to save the whale. And it was, you look back on that almost laughing, because they're classed as hippies or druggies but no, what they're doing is they're telling us, they're actually telling us, and we in our stupidness, if you like, we think they're wrong and they're druggies, so we're writing them off. We should have listened. We should have listened. We'd have been going through this stage 60 years ago. We should have listened to them. They were right. Everything they saw and everything they said, they were right. So, but we do. We think we're far more intelligent than we are. We think we're the most intelligent animal on the earth. And you've only got to look at dolphins. I went to Florida recently with the family, and we swam with dolphins, and they are amazing creatures. Amazing. Far more intelligent than we ever have given them credit for. Whales as well. Whales have been known to communicate with each other over hundreds of miles. But even birds, you look at birds, and they're all making particular geometric shapes in the sky. They all know what time of year to fly north and to warm up. We've written off nature because of our conceited opinion of the earth and Mother Nature. We think we're the most intelligent. We're not in the slightest. We think we're in charge of these animals. We're the top of the tree. We're not. And I think we're just becoming to this. We're just getting to this point in evolution where we're beginning to understand it a little bit, to be honest with you. Hello. I think everyone's left me. Are we still there?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go and let my dog out.
That's all right. All right. I thought, hello, I've fallen asleep again.
I didn't want to interrupt you mid-flow, so I just tried to sneak off quickly. If you ever see my camera go off, it means I'm leaving the room just for a few seconds.
Yeah, we're not the most intelligent creature at all. We're just so conceited.
Yeah. Funny enough you say about the whales. We had a humpback whale came into the Fishguard Bay, a young one, a few days ago, and it's never happened, as far as we know, in history ever. And he came in there, and loads of people got videos of it. It's like everyone that saw it was like, said it was a humbling experience to see him. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, and I saw the videos of it. And it's like, wow, what the hell is going on for this to happen here? This is something's going on. It shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't get humpback whales in Wales, so to speak. It shouldn't happen.
We're changing. We
Yeah,
are changing.
something's going on, and it's just so special to see the videos of him. It's so special, it's like a once in a lifetime thing. You're never going to probably see that again. But
When my son was born, me and my wife took him round to the grandparents, and the grandparents have got two cats. One was a very timid cat, didn't want to get into any sort of like problem, and the other cat was in control. It was the alpha cat. So we went round there, and the alpha cat was male and the timid cat was female. Went round there with my son, and my wife sat on the seat, and the cat come up, kept putting her paw on, because he was crying at a particular time because he was hungry, kept putting her paw on my son's back of my son's hand, and it looked like she was going, "It's okay, there." And I'm looking at this, I'm going, this is fascinating. It wasn't a nasty thing. It was very soft and gentle. It was Mother Nature at work. And then all of a sudden, the other cat, the male cat, decided to approach, and the timid cat turned on the male cat and chased him off, and then come back and put her hand on the back of his hand again. That's all right. And I'm looking at this going, this is fascinating. I wish I'd have videoed this. That was just the most amazing thing ever. This matriarchal urge in all of us, the male and female, especially the female, this urge in all of us is coming to the forefront. It's coming to the surface. And I think that's what the change is. We're understanding. We're becoming a question. And perhaps all this subject is going to go on, because not Armageddon. Armageddon comes from Armaguido, which is a fortified hill. But apocalypse. Everyone keeps saying that it's the beginning of the apocalypse. Apocalypse actually means lifting of the veil, or the thinning of the veil, revealing of the truth. And that's what we're going through an apocalypse. We're seeing things the way we've never seen them before. And in the UK, we're trusting members of Parliament less and less and less every week.
you can't blame them, can you? It's awful.
No, some of the tricks that they've pulled is ridiculous.
Yeah, I've never known a government. Don't get me wrong, it's probably always gone on, but to be almost upfront about how crooked they are, I've just never known it ever. They just don't care. It's like they're arrogant to think, oh, we're fine, we're in charge, we're fine. We'll just, throw some tax rebates out just before the election, and everyone will support us again for another 4 years or whatever. That's how they think.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It is, but it's becoming more and more, and it's ever since the expenses thing.
Yeah.
That they were claiming for bath plugs. What's that got to do with bath plugs? Why would you do that? 79 pence. Why would you put that on expenses, other than the fact that you can dodge paying for it? It's silly. Ever since that, though, and especially the ones that were caught swindling the expenses. Not all of them were swindling expenses, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's terrible. But ever since that point, people have started trusting them less and less and less.
You said about the second coming it's like a re-emergence of nature. So I can't remember exactly how you worded it.
Hmm.
Did you say it was something about something happening this year? Were you linking it to that, or do you mean something else that's happening this year? You said something about that. I can't remember
Well,
what you meant.
this particular year, more than anything else, a lot of mediums are saying that this is going to be a big year. Things are going to start happening this year, 2024. When
Right.
I looked into the Mayan prophecies, which said that there's going to be a change from the, and I've probably got the wrong words now. They said time goes through certain groups of ages, 4,968 or something like that years each group, and it goes through 5 groups, and then it starts again. Well, it goes back to the golden times, the times of that the pharaohs were in, presumably when the pyramid was actually built, not this 2,500-year-old fairy story that we're told about the pyramid. But they've said that the ending of the last Bacton, if I've got the right word, I can't even remember the right word for it, was December the 21st, winter solstice 2012. Then things are going to turn. Things are going to go back to the way they used to be, which is our understanding of nature. And when you look back through the past 12 years, it's gone exactly like that. Yes, there has been more volcanoes erupting and tsunamis and all over the past 12 years, we have more recycling's done now than ever before. Electric cars are showing, everyone's putting solar panels on their roof, and we're gradually going back to understanding that you can't keep abusing the soil that you're standing on, because one day that soil's not going to be there anymore and you've got nowhere else to go.
Mm.
You should have understood this 60, 70 years ago. We'd be okay by then. They should have listened to Nikola Tesla. We'd have been fine by now if we'd have listened to him, because he wanted free energy for everybody with his Tesla tower, built on what he said was going on in the Great Pyramid. But yeah, this is the Mayan prophecies prophesized a return to Mother Nature. That was how I put it in the book that was released before December the 21st, 2012. It's a return to Mother Nature. And that's what we're going through now.
Because I've been shown a huge awakening, spiritual awakening, where I've been shown it's going to happen. I don't know when. I think this year, but I don't know for sure. I can't be 100% about it. I just know it's going to happen. I've been shown different signs, and that it's going that way.
Yeah.
And I also notice, because I feel I've got a strong connection with my higher self, or whatever you call it, or nature, whatever it is you call it, whatever. As I'm getting further along this path, I feel that I'm getting closer to nature in a sense, and it's almost, I'm from a Christian background. Yeah. It's almost like I'm listening to what you're talking. It's almost like I'm becoming more to the way of thinking that the pagans' way of thinking is the way I'm going, and it's like I never thought of myself as that, but I'm going every direction I'm going towards seems to be going to that direction. So it's making me question, like, well, what's going on? Like, in a sense, in a good way, but I can just see that it's going that way, for me.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think Roger's.
I've had a weird experience with all that, and like when it comes to like global warming and climate change and everything, I've got my issues with that on the way people are dealing with it, because it's turned more into control methods, like we were talking about earlier, and you said something that was key. You said Mother Earth and the soil. Okay. And nobody's focusing on that when it comes to all this environmental climate change and stuff like that. They're focusing on everything else, but they're not worried about the earth. Like, if you want to know how much damage has been done, go out to your backyard, pick freaking the corner of your yard and just dig down 4 foot. You know what I'm saying? And I guarantee you'll find something that's freaking horrible in the dirt in your own backyard. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the reason why I found that out was because I did my gardening, And I went out and I tilled the soil in my yard, and I've done quite a bit of my yard that way, you know. So I know how much garbage has been under the soil for the last at least 100 years. You know what I mean? Just complete garbage where people didn't even care. You know, they used to burn their trash out there, stuff like that. You had burn holes. It was a different way of life. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't make it any different. We were still damaging the earth, you know, and people have been doing this stuff since they were able to build the first cities, you know. So that's the thing that gets me, you know. I mean, if you want to take care of the planet Earth, you need to look at the Earth, you know, and the damage that's being done there, you know, and these aquifers, people like to, you know, they like to talk about the aquifers, but they don't want to talk about why we have droughts in Denver, Colorado. You know what I mean? The reason why is because they're allowing farmers to freaking use these pesticides again.
Yeah.
After the Dust Bowl, mind you. And they're putting these pesticides on their plants, and then they're allowing them to use the water from this underground aquifer, which is actually the largest one on the face of the planet. Okay. And they're allowing the farmers to tap into that aquifer and feed their plants. Well, that poison from the freaking pesticides is going down into the aquifer, and it's depleting.
Yeah.
You know, but they want to say that that's caused from deforestation, you know, from the trees and the ice and the snow from the mountains coming down. But they don't want to mention the fact that they're allowing farmers to poison their soil, you know. And I think that's the one thing people need to start noticing, you know, and focusing on the earth. Stop focusing. You know, I remember how much pollution there was back in the 80s whenever it came to freaking. I lived in Phoenix, and I remembered it was just a big old black cloud, and it's not like that anymore. It is to an extent, but not like it used to be, you know. And I didn't like that. Now that needed to go away, but I didn't have to freaking say that the entire earth was going to freaking go dry and everybody was going to be without water, you know, stuff like that, because I want freaking pollution to end, you know. So I have my issues when it comes to all that, like the control stuff and politics in it. I really don't like the idea of politics being involved when it comes to the environment and the earth, because I'm big on that stuff too when it comes to nature and not destroying, you know, what we've got, because people really don't understand how fragile this planet really is. It's actually it is a living being, and they don't realize that. They don't understand the concept of life. You know what I mean? Life isn't just human beings with a conscience.
No.
Life is the freaking grass, it's trees, it's the animals, it's all of it. This is life. The planet Earth itself so far. The planet Earth so far is the Garden of Eden, because there's no other planet like this planet. You know, so I'll shut up now.
We're all part of consciousness. What you see, what we all call reality, is just a visualization of consciousness. So, and this is what, you know, people. There's a famous phrase I can't quite get my head around now. It says, people follow a religious leader. Yes, something, a religious leader, without realizing, and then pull down trees. They follow a religious leader. They pull down trees. They build on land without realizing the nature that we're destroying is actually the religious leader that they should be following. So we've been going in the wrong direction all this time, and I've got that jumbled up there. So please, I'm really sorry about that. It was a lovely quote. I've just messed it right up. But yeah, we've got to follow nature. Paganism, when you look at the statistics, paganism is on the rise, and all the rest of the organized religions following them is dropping. I haven't looked into all of them, just some of them, but the attendance is dropping. But paganism is on the rise, and I don't think when you look back in time, pagans were, they were sacrificing this one and that one and all the rest of it. That's not where I want to go. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to go down that route. Call me old-fashioned if you will, but I think that their belief system, the mother nature element, and looking after the earth and looking after the trees, and I think they hit the nail on the head. They got it right. They had it right back then. So paganism, without all the nasty stuff, is spot on as far as I'm concerned. I would class myself as pagan, and I was brought up a Christian, not heavily religious Christian, but I was brought up a Christian. But now I would class myself as a pagan, purely for this reason.
Oh, there's one thing I forgot to mention too. Like whenever I done my research in archaeology and stuff like that, there's a fact that nobody seems to catch on to, and it has to do with the human's teeth. Okay, and this is weird, I know, but did you know that before humans started gardening and creating crops, when they were hunter-gatherers, and before then, not one of them ever had signs of cavity?
Oh, really?
They have never found artifacts of a human skull with cavities in their teeth to this day. Every single one of them had perfect teeth. It was when we started gardening and eating vegetables that we started getting cavities.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that was the last thing I wanted to bring up.
I mean, there's a lot of people that think we should stop eating meat because of the ozone layer or the environment and breeding cows and getting so many cows, and with their flatulence, it's causing a problem and all that. We've been eating meat since the year dot. It was the only thing virtually the only thing that was about at one point. So the cavemen used to just go, and I'm just nipping out for a buffalo, love, I won't be long. And then he'd bring back the buffalo. And then the wife would feather the nest, and it's the male and female of the species. That's the way they operate through the birds and animals and everything. So, I could, if I've always said, if it was down to me having to kill the animal to eat, I would probably become a vegetarian. But I would kill the animal so my wife and my son could eat. I wouldn't have any qualms in doing that at all. But if it was down to me, just for me, I'd be a vegetarian, to be honest with you. I can understand the amount of flatulence that these cows get. I'm used to like fishing, and I've been in a field with the cows. The cows had a quick wind attack, and it's not nice at all. So I can imagine thousands and thousands of them.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that. Like, everybody thinks that it's going to they're saying that it's causing global warming.
Yeah.
Like pigs farting. Like, are you serious? Really?
It does seem ridiculous to me. It's this. There's no doubt that there is global warming. It's, all the scientists have proven that. But I think they're all looking in the wrong direction. They're all saying, no, we're doing it. Well, no, hang on a minute. Hold it. I've got nothing to hang me out on there. You say this, and because it's, somebody drove their car around the corner, and I can understand it isn't helping, but that isn't down to us. Not 100%. No way near it. So the Earth, when you look back in time, the Earth has always heated up and cooled down and heated up and cooled down. We go on the Earth wobbles as well as spins on its orbit. And it's the wobble that causes these problems. When you look at the Earth, it's spinning like this in front of the sun. Let me get in. in front of the sun, but the Earth also does that. It wobbles. And it's something like 5,000 year a wobble. It is 5,100 and whatever. I didn't know all the numbers. But it's the wobble that heats the world up because we're getting closer to the sun. It's always happened. Always happened.
Yeah, I'm wanting to actually go over the great year and how the rotation of the Earth is when it comes to the great year. That's one thing that I've always wanted to get into too. And like when you bring that up, you know, it also makes me think of like you know, Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
At one time, a lot of people don't realize it was called the Fertile Crescent for a reason. You know, they had wild lions that used to roam free along the Fertile Crescent, and there was wild animals that was there. And now it's just a desolate desert, you know. And the reason why it became that way was because the Mesopotamians didn't freaking properly irrigate. Their irrigation systems actually ended up being their downfall. It was
Really?
most brilliant. Yeah, it was their most brilliant invention, you know, that they gave man. But in the end, it actually was their downfall. That's the reason why their civilizations fell, you know. So I have to go and play video games with Rapid Glitch. So I'm going to have to back out for this, and I will talk to you guys later, okay?
Roger, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I have to shoot off now as well. I've got to go and make food before I get at my son.
Well, that sounds good. I'm going to get a cup of tea.
Yeah. I got about several flasks here, show flasks. I just one drink on.
Don't flatulate.
In my youth, it would have been cans of beer.
What's the word?
No.
Flatulate.
Flatulate, yeah.
Don't be. Yeah, don't flatulate.
Yeah.
all those flasks sitting around you.
Yeah. I think in our youth, the beer we drank must have added quite a bit to global warming back then.
I had to mute because of what he was saying there, because the moment he said the word flatulation, I was like, oh my God, the pigs. I was like, oh man. I laugh every time I hear that.
Fortunately, chat has been very quiet today, but it was quiet last week's episode as well. But it doesn't matter, you know, it takes time. Sometimes if chat is really busy, sometimes it's dead. So today is a dead day, which doesn't matter anyway.
Yes.
So,
well, gentlemen,
I have a sneak.
fascinating as always.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I have
a
a sneaking suspicion that Vince was watching because he made a post on Discord. So I think he was watching. He might. I don't know for sure. He didn't make a comment, but he did post in Discord. So
okay. Well, there we are. And just to let you know, Mike, what we do with this show, obviously this is aired live on Wonderful World of Weirdness, but what we do as well, we do like backup. We back up everything as well, because YouTube in its wisdom, it doesn't like promote live streams. Once you've done them, that's it. It just goes into the netherworld. Yeah. So what Rogers has started it. What we do is we back up all our live streams, but like long live streams like this one, we would split it up probably into 2, sometimes 3 parts, depending on what it is. And we just put it, we'll say like this is episode 2, then it would be episode 2 part 1, part 2, whatever. That's how we do it, and we air it at different dates throughout the week, just for you to know how we're doing it here, in case you see it on the channel and you think, what's going on? That's to let you know, because the backups, our archive, as Roger calls it, you get far more watches than we do in the live streams, you know, because people can watch it any time, and so that's why we do it that way as well. It's you to know.
Yeah, brilliant.
So that's how we're doing it here. So here we are. We'll wrap it up then. Thanks to both of you for being here, and we'll see you hopefully next week, weather permitting, life permitting.
Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Stream off.